Good morning. Now we are going to see the CAED screening checklist to identify potential ELD cases. As you can see, the screening checklist has an introduction where you can find the useful information known or estimated to screen ELD cases for step 1 and for step 2. And then you find some notes. Let's see the screening checklist, which is made of 2 steps, step 1 and step 2. Step 1 has basic questions, and it has been made for non-ELD experts that can deliver the cases to the ELD competent authority. Step 2 can still be completed by non-ELD experts trained to do the screening of ELD cases. Otherwise, can be done directly by the ELD competent authority. Let's have a look at step 1. You can see that step 1 is divided into 3 kinds of screening dedicated to the 3 types of environmental damage. Let's see the screening of biodiversity damage, where you can find different questions related on which area you are visiting or inspecting. In the first case, if you are visiting or inspecting a terrestrial natural area, an aquatic environment, or an artificial area with a terrestrial natural area or aquatic environment around it, or an intensive agricultural area with a terrestrial natural area or aquatic environment around it, you will answer this question. Otherwise, if you are visiting or inspecting an artificial area or an intensive agricultural area, you will answer this question. Why? Because in this first question, you will read, have you seen detected either of the following occurrences? At least one in the first list of damaging occurrences in D4, or at least one of the second list of adverse effects in D5. So the first questions in the first case have an or. So if you find one of the listed in this drop-down list, the damaging occurrences, for example, large-scale land movement, you can go directly to the column of direction. So if you see this case, one of these cases, you can go directly to step 2. So you don't need to see any adverse effect in this case listed here with a drop-down list, which is not pretending to be complete, exhaustive, so you can add other examples. In this case, instead, this second case, the question will be, have you seen detected both of the following occurrences? At least one in the first list of the damaging occurrence listed in D6, and at least one of the second list of the adverse effect in D7. So the question is, in this case, second case, and so you should see a damaging occurrence and one of the adverse effects listed here. For example, a direct destruction of plant or animals. If yes, in this case, you can go directly to step 2. If no, further information data are needed to screen the case. Let's see the screening of water damage. You have different questions here, which are related to the type of waters that you are visiting or inspecting. In this case, inland surface water. In this, transitional marine, coastal, and territorial waters, protected areas under Water Framework Directive or Marine Strategy Framework Directive, and groundwater. The question is, have you seen detected any of the following occurrences? And then you have here answers related to the type of waters that you're inspecting. The first one was surface waters. So you have the drop-down list of occurrences that you can find during your inspection. So, for example, a large-scale residual spot of hydrocarbon substances over surface water. So, in case you find this or another one of them, you can go to step 2. Otherwise, further information that are needed to screen the case. The same, of course, for the other options. For example, this was about groundwaters. In the last case, for the screening of land damage, the question is, have you seen detected any of the following occurrences? Then you have the list. And then, for example, you have this case of presence of hazardous gas wafers from land with actual possible human exposure. Then you can go to step 2. So let's see step 2. Step 2 is made of 2 sections. The first section is on ELD applicability check, and the second section is on the screening, further screening of the case. So for the ELD applicability, you have the question related to the Article 4 of ELD, questions related to the temporal scope, Article 17 of ELD, and the last questions related to liability regime. So for the first question on exemptions, you have this question. Has the emission event or incident been caused by any of the following exemptions? So you have the list of the exemptions here. If you find one of these, so ELD does not apply. Otherwise, go to D15. And then, of course, D15 is the question related to this temporal scope. But here you have another box which contain the cases where DLD applies, but the operator has the right to limit his liability. Okay, so for the temporal scope, the question is, has any of the following options occurred? And then you have the options. For example, this is the option when the emission event or incident takes place subsequent to 30 April 2007, but it derives from a specific activity that took place and finished before 30 April 2007. In this case, ELD does not apply, for example. And this is the last question related to ELD liability regime. So the adverse effect have been caused by occupational activity, for example, not listed in Annex 3 of ELD, then the directions in the last column says, if occupational activity is not listed in Annex 3, ELD applies only for damage to biodiversity with fault-based liability regime. So the last checks of the screening of the potential ELD cases is this, and is divided into the three types of damage. And it consider in the first questions the natural resources, actual or likely adverse by negative effects, and here the reference concept related to the natural resources, where the damage factors can generate adverse effects on them. So here you can find, after the question, you can find here the list of natural resources that can be actually or likely affected by the adverse effect. If you have one of these, this is one of the case, then you should go to check the second question here on reference concept. So the question is, damage factors can generate adverse effect on, these are the list of reference concept that counts for ELD, Environmental Liability Directive. So here ELD applies, otherwise ELD does not apply. For water damage, the same natural resources and reference concept into two questions that have been actual or likely adverse effect on one of these natural resources considered by the LD, then you should go to the second question. So damage factors can generate adverse effect on one of these reference concepts. So ELD applies in this case, or ELD does not apply. For land damage, you have only this question. Has any of the following options occurred? And then you have the list of the options that, if selected, for example, the contamination on, in, or under land can generate risk to human health, is, if selected, ELD applies. Otherwise, ELD does not apply. So this is the last column of directions that gives you the directions on what to do. And here is the legenda where you can find some examples of the types of area that were listed at the beginning when you checked the biodiversity damage with these questions. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening.